Okay, welcome. This one will be more of a translation discussion than a travel discussion. We're going to be looking carefully at the translation of the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 11, where Jesus talks about the Good Shepherd. So at some points, this one will get pretty deep into the details of New Testament translation. So if that's not your cup of tea, I won't be offended. You can go get a cup of coffee and we'll see you later. But we want to begin by just listening to the Holy Scripture here, the Gospel of John, chapter 10. This is the NIV. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. I have some disagreements with that translation, which will become clear in due time. But I'd like you first to hear it exactly as John the Apostle wrote it so long ago. Ego eimi ha poimen ha kalos. Ha poimen ha kalos ten spukein autu tithesin huper ton probaton. I am the faithful shepherd. The faithful shepherd lays his life on the line for the sheep. Lays his life on the line for the sheep. That's my fundamental disagreement with the NIV. So, with the books on my shelf and with the help of Bible Gateway, I've looked at about 55 different English translations of that passage, and about 50 of them disagree with me, and fortunately 4 or 5 agree with me, so I'm not completely alone in what I have to say. So let's begin with one of the earlier ones, Tyndale 1526. And there are a couple of things that are completely unique here about Tyndale. This is Tyndale 1526. I am a good shepherd. A good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. Now you'll notice a couple of things there. One is that Tyndale says, I am a good shepherd. Tyndale feels that Jesus is not simply talking here about himself, but he is talking about how faithful shepherds in general act. And Tyndale is assuming, rightly I think, that Jesus, though he is the good shepherd, he is not the only good shepherd or faithful shepherd. 1 Samuel chapter 17, David was a faithful shepherd of his father's flock. When a wolf or a bear or a lion came, David put himself between the flock and the threat, and he took his sturdy shepherd's club and clobbered the lion or the bear. And then again, sometime later, when the Israelite army was gathered in the valley of Elah, and the Philistines were coming up the valley, and a bear came out of the Philistine camp, insulting God and insulting God's people, David again came and put himself between the sheep and the threat, laying his life on the line to confront the threat, thus proving himself to be a faithful shepherd. And that's why, because of that event, that Israel began to recognize him as the correct shepherd, the faithful shepherd, the true king of Israel. For one more example of a faithful shepherd in the Old Testament, toward the end of the life of Judah, 2 Kings 22, good King Josiah, a faithful shepherd, restored the temple, rediscovered the book of the law, cut down the Asherah pole, burned it, a faithful shepherd. Toward the end of his life, he did an unwise thing. did something God had not told him to do. He went to confront Pharaoh Necho and sadly lost his life. And very shortly afterwards, Judah went over the waterfall because they had lost their faithful shepherd. So Tyndale has Jesus saying, I am a good shepherd. He was not the first faithful shepherd and not supposed to be the last either. If you are a parent, you are called to be a faithful shepherd. And if your 2-year-old is in the stroller and the stroller is rolling into the street, you run down and put yourself in harm's way if necessary. Lay your life on the line, for my translation, in order to save the child. The Apostle Peter, 1 Peter chapter 5, talks about those who are faithful shepherds in the congregation. If heresy is coming into the flock, it's your responsibility to put yourself between the flock and the threat and to confront the threat. That's what it means to be a faithful shepherd. If you're in the fellowship hall and someone walks in with hostility in their face, looking for someone to dump on, the faithful shepherd is the one who steps in and intervenes. Many of you will know that on January 4, here in Perry, Iowa, a high school principal named Dan Marburger was a faithful shepherd. He put himself in harm's way. He stepped between the young man with the gun and the students. He laid his life on the line. So Tyndale, I am a good shepherd. The good shepherd, of course, but not the first faithful shepherd, nor is he to be the last. We are to be also faithful shepherds. The second thing that Tyndale does that's interesting, a good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. He's added that word his. And it's realistic. I mean, it's the shepherd out in the hills of Palestine isn't worried about everybody else's flock. He's worried about his flock, his sheep. And he's willing to lay his life on the line for his sheep, which is, of course, Jesus' attitude toward us. He counts us as his sheep. And a little bit later in this passage, he talks about, I have other sheep, not of this fold. Speaking of us, of course, across the world. And I will bring them also. There will be one flock, one shepherd. So that's Tyndale. And then we have about... I am the good shepherd, or as I prefer to translate, let me find my Greek back, here it is. I am the faithful shepherd. I am the faithful shepherd. There's been some experimentation with that translation. Some suggested the noble shepherd. Father Ray Brown, who wrote the massive commentary on the Gospel of John, he suggested the model shepherd, the example shepherd. I prefer the faithful shepherd. I am a faithful shepherd, or I am the faithful shepherd. Because I think, I learned from Grant Osborne, context is king. If you look at the context of verse 11 and verse 12, in verse 11 it's the faithful shepherd, in verse 12 is the faithless shepherd. So I'm going with I am the faithful shepherd. And now we go along a little farther. The faithful shepherd lays his life on the line for the sheep. And it's tithemi, which means literally to put or to place. Now, this is, of course, the crucial disagreement I have with most translations. Well, I got thinking about this because I looked at the textual critical apparatus, and P45 has actually didomi instead of tithemi. And didomi is the simple word that means give. So if you read P45 and some of the Latin traditions, Codex Bezae, it does say the Good Shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But if you read all of our best witnesses, they do not say that. They say the faithful shepherd lays his life on the line for the sheep. Tithemi is a word that's used, it simply means to put or to place. It's used in the New Testament. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a bushel. When John the Baptist died, his followers took his body and placed it or laid it in the grave. And so, well, the word here, the Good Shepherd, tithemi, his life, that would sustain the translation to lay it down, but it would also sustain the translation to lay it on the line, which I favor, because John the Gospel writer did not choose the word that normally means give. He chose a different word, and so I think there's a reason for it. And so I'm disagreeing with 23 English translations that say the Good Shepherd gives his life for the sheep, starting with Tyndale. I suspect that Tyndale and the King James folks had a Western text. They probably had didomi in the text, and so that was a natural translation. But now we have a different word, and a more accurate, so I think we should follow that. We have 30 translations that say lay down. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. That's closer, but I think it's not quite right. So finally we come to the Good Shepherd lays his life on the line for the sheep. And Eugene Peterson happily agrees with me. The Good Shepherd puts the sheep before himself, sacrificing himself if necessary. And Robert Bratcher, TEV, the Good Shepherd is willing to die for his sheep. The part of the problem I have with the translation that says the Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep is that it simply doesn't work. It's the logic of the passage. Look at the passage. Verse 11 and verse 12 is talking about what shepherds in general do. Good shepherds lay their life on the line for the sheep. They do not lay down their life for the sheep. When the wolf is coming, the shepherd does not go out, lie down and say, "Go ahead and eat me," because the wolf will eat him first and then eat the flock. It doesn't make any sense. But the Good Shepherd does lay his life on the line or risk his life. He puts himself in harm's way. The firefighters in Southern California, when they're fighting the wildfires, they're not going out there to die with the purpose of dying. They're going out there to live. But they do put themselves in harm's way. They put themselves between the housing development and the fire, and thereby lay their life on the line. And some of them lose their life. But that isn't the point. All of them are laying their life on the line to save the housing development. Our principal in Perry, he was severely wounded, and 10 days later passed away in the hospital. He died. But his death was irrelevant. His death was irrelevant to the description of what he did. He laid his life on the line, and whether he ultimately died or survived his wounds, he still was a faithful shepherd who laid his life on the line for the sheep. And now I'm going to come to part of my concern with this more normal translation or more usual translation. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. That's focusing exclusively on Good Friday. On Good Friday, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, lays down his life for the sheep. That's true. But Jesus was not the Good Shepherd only on Good Friday. He was the Good Shepherd all through the 3 years of his ministry, when he was laying his life on the line for the sheep. When the storm is threatening to destroy his disciples, he steps up and puts himself in harm's way, puts himself between his sheep and the storm, and pushes the storm away. When they land on the shore and the demoniac comes out, and there's this legion of demons who are assaulting the man, Jesus puts himself between the man and the demons, putting himself in harm's way, laying his life on the line and pushing away the demons. And when death has come and claimed the son of the widow of Nain, Luke chapter 7, he puts himself, between the coffin and the widow, and he pushes away the death. He's putting his life on the line all through those 3 years to defend his sheep. He is the good shepherd all those years, and yet today. And yet today. If you narrow this only to he's the good shepherd at the moment when he's laying down his life for the sheep, then he's the good shepherd on Good Friday. That's the only time he died. But if you understand it as the good shepherd lays his life on the line for the sheep, risks his safety for the welfare of the sheep, then you see it all the way through those 3-year ministry, and you see it all the way through in his followers today, as we're willing to go out and take a risk and confront what is wrong, confront what is dangerous for the sake of the sheep. So, well, thank you for joining us.